Okay, let's see if I can remember how to do this. Everybody, and welcome back to Inside number 23, my little part of the internet where I like to talk about sewing and knitting and my crafty life in general. And I just wanted to say hello and welcome, and I'm so excited to be here with you. It's been a little while and this feels a little bit weird, I'm not going to lie. My name is Katie and you can find me pretty much everywhere on social media as Miss Lavelli, although I'm most active on Instagram. And we also have a Ravelry group for the podcast where you can get involved in knit-alongs and giveaways and all of that good stuff. And if you want to contact me regarding anything to do with the podcast, please do drop me an email. My email is katie@inside23.com, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Oh my goodness, you guys, I am really quite nervous this week. For those of you who are long-term viewers, thank you so much for waiting for me and for obviously coming back whenever I'm here with a podcast for you. I have missed you and it is wonderful to be able to hang out with you again. For new viewers, apologies if this is a little bit off and this is your first episode, but I have had a little break. But I am back and I'm excited and I'm so full of the joys of the season, and it's just amazing and epic and wonderful. So basically I'm happy to be here and I hope that you're happy to be here too. And fingers crossed this kind of nervous energy chills out a little bit by the time we get into talking about some crafty bits and pieces. It's been a good few weeks since I've had a chat with you. I believe it's been almost a month since my last episode, and since I started the podcast almost 2 years ago, it has never gone that long without me having an episode for you guys. So thank you for hanging on for me and waiting. I'm going to chat about what's been kind of happening in the interim period at the end of the podcast in my general waffle. But for the rest of the episode, I am really going to stick to the kind of the main core parts of the podcast, because I have been doing quite a lot of crafting. I did have a bit of time when I wasn't really wanting to do anything at all, not even knit, which is when you know that there's really kind of something not great going on. But I have got a lot of stuff done that I'm really excited to share with you. But yes, more on all of that a little bit later. For now, I'm going to crack on with a little bit of admin for the podcast to start off with, because I very excitingly have a winner to announce from an incredible giveaway, which was this beautiful skein of yarn from the Wool Kitchen. And yeah, this thread was open a long time in Ravelry, you guys, because I was away for such a long time, and an insane amount of you entered. Over 500 people entered the giveaway, so thank you so much to everybody who took part over on Ravelry. I mean, I can't blame you because this skein is utterly stunning. But this morning I did lock the thread and used random number generator, and it drew out post 101, who was Maria. And Maria, I'm going to try and pronounce your Ravelry name. I believe it's Macarasquero. I really hope that's correct, but congratulations, Maria. I'm so happy that this skein is going to be yours. So please do drop me an email with your contact information. I will get this sent out to you ASAP. For other people who are prize winners who have got in touch with me regarding things like the Harry Potter knit along recently, thank you for bearing with me in terms of your parcels haven't been sent out yet. Fingers crossed I will be getting them posted to you tomorrow, but I will drop you an email to let you know. So thank you so much for being amazing and for hanging on for me, as you all have, which just makes my heart so happy. Also, before we get started, the Harry Potter knit-along. We're almost at the end of the Harry Potter knit-along, you guys. Can you believe it? I'm going to be drawing the November prize winner next week, but I'm also going to be opening up the thread for the grand prize drawing, yay, for the Harry Potter knit-along. Basically, for those of you who haven't been getting involved, if you have knit 6 or more Harry Potter themed objects in the past year, you can enter our amazing extra special prize drawing for the end of the year, although I probably will be drawing it at the beginning of next year, to win a beautiful selection of prizes. And I'm going to have all of those things ready to share with you next week, so remember to tune in next week if you're interested in seeing what you could win for that. So exciting, yay! Whew. All administrative things to one side, I think it's time to kick off with a little bit of classic what am I wearing, because I am wearing a little bit of me-made goodness this week. It is, of course, for those of you who are long-term viewers, this will be a really boring update. It's another Rowe Bleuet. This is the new version of the Bleuet Dress by Deer and Doe, which I shared with you a little while ago in this gorgeous tartan poplin fabric. I love this dress. It is perfect for this time of year. I'm a little bit overwhelmed that we are nearly in December. When this goes live, obviously it will be December. It's going to be Christmas time, mistletoe and wine, and I am very much feeling the Christmas spirit at the moment, so these kind of outfits are making me incredibly happy. I love this dress. It's just glorious. I mean, see all of my previous podcasts for, you know, infinity and beyond for how much I love this pattern. But yeah, this one is particularly great now. It's getting more wintry and Christmas feeling. I do tend to wear a big sweater over it if I'm wearing it out, because obviously it's only got these little cap sleeves. But for just wearing about the house, where it's nice and cozy, it's absolutely fine to wear without. But yes, that is what I'm wearing this week. Okay, are you ready for this, you guys? Are you ready for the amount of stuff that I have to share with you for what's on my needles this week? Considering the last time that I spoke to you, I was in a major funk when it came to my knitting. Things have progressed somewhat, shall we say, which I'm very, very happy about, because my goodness, I was utterly fed up of feeling so frustrated with my knitting. I had ripped out not one, not two, but 3 large projects when we last spoke, and it was just... it was doing my head in, to be perfectly honest. I had no time for it, and combined with all of the other additional stresses that were going on in my life, it just felt like everything, even my knitting, was conspiring against me. I am very, very happy to say that I have well and truly turned the corner in terms of my knitting projects now, and I have not 1, not 2, but 3 works in progress to share with you, and I love each and every one of them. And they are all sweater projects. It's been a while since I completed a sweater, and I must admit, my gorgeous friend Amy of the Stranded Dye Works podcast and Stranded Dye Works, the yarn dyeing company, oh my goodness, her constant array of hand knit sweaters has just made me green with jealousy, so I needed to be able to compete in my own little way. So it's sweater central here at the moment, and I couldn't be happier, honestly. I have found my joy again, and it just feels splendid. So I'm going to start off with a project that I had shared progress with you in my previous episode, and that is the Kerrytown pullover. This is a pattern by Annie Lupton, who is of the Boho Chic Fibre Company, she says, looking at her notes. And I had made quite a bit of progress on this when I last shared it with you, but oh my goodness. Look, guys! It is huge and beautiful and amazing. And if you haven't quite realised, I have completed all of the knitting for this sweater. So this beautiful, beautiful sweater, the Kerrytown pullover, is an oversized, glorious piece of amazingness, and oh my goodness, I love it so much. I am going to be completing most of the work on this afternoon, and hopefully by the time I podcast next week it will be completely done. But let me just give you a little tour around the sweater. So it has the most incredible cable pattern down the front. Oh my goodness, if this doesn't get you going, you guys, if this doesn't get your little knitting brains in the mood, I don't know what will. It is stunning. And then it also has this beautiful ridge pattern that runs down each of the fronts, the sides of the front rather. And that rigid pattern also runs down the entire back. Isn't that, it kind of reminds me of like a turtle shell. I don't know why, because clearly it's nothing like a turtle shell, but I adore it and it's so beautiful. This texture, just feeling it makes me happy. I am a very, very tactile person, so the feel of a garment really needs to do it for me, and this one does in the best possible way. A couple of other little details. There is obviously rib on the front and on the back, but the rib on the back is a little bit longer, so you get this beautiful little dropped hem detail at the back, which I adore. So the reason that it is, all of the knitting is completed, but it is not yet finished, is that it does need seaming. So this sweater is knit in pieces. So you knit the front piece, you knit the back piece, you then seam them together at the shoulder seams. You then add the sleeves, one on each side, which are knit flat across the shoulder like this. And you then add the detailing to the collar. So you do all of the rounds around the collar as well, around the neckline. And I just love this. The reason that it's not completely done for me is that I do need to block out the sleeves and the neckline before I seam it up. I have already wet blocked the front and the back panels, and I did this because I didn't want to be knitting the sleeves into it when they weren't quite finished and blocked and kind of flat. I find it much easier to pick up stitches neatly if I'm working with fabric that's already nice and kind of flat and good to go. So that's the reason that it's not completely done. But this afternoon I am going to wet block the sleeves and the collar. I'm not going to wet block the rest of it because that's already been done, so I'll just kind of damp those areas and allow it to dry flat, entirely flat, spread out I think. And once it's dry, which hopefully won't be too long because it's only small parts of it that will be wet blocked, I will then mattress seam up, which you basically do the sleeves and the body all in one go. So you go blue, 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 and then I will have a sweater, and I couldn't be happier. I can't wait to wear this. This yarn was rescued from a previous project. It was rescued from my Hufflepuff Pride cardigan, which would have been kind of a varsity style cardigan, almost entirely knit in stockinette. And although it was a lovely pattern and I was enjoying working on it and I thought that it was, you know, it was okay, my love for the Kerrytown pullover makes me know that I was 100% right to rip back all of that sweater because I had done the majority of the knitting on it, and to rescue the yarn and put it into this. This yarn, in case you were wondering, is a commercial yarn. This is Knit Picks Capra, which is an MCN blend, and it is snuggly and warm and soft and gorgeous, and this colour makes my heart so happy. And I can't even tell you how much I'm looking forward to wearing this. I actually think it would be quite cute with this dress, maybe, over the top. You never know, but it's beautiful. And working on this has really been my happy place over the last few weeks. It's brought me huge amounts of joy. And when it's finished, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be wearing it to death. It might even be the jumper that I wear over Christmas. You never know. My next work in progress for What's on My Needles is another project which is using rescued yarn. Now, you may or may not remember, I had been working on the Netherton cardigan from the reprint edition 1 of Pom Pom Quarterly, and I had done pretty much all the knitting. I mean, this is a story that you've heard before, because this is basically what happened with the Hufflepuff Pride cardigan. I did almost all of the knitting and then realised that I didn't like it. The Netherton cardigan, beautiful pattern though it was, once I had finished knitting the body and kind of going through all of that, I realised that I was just never going to wear this cardigan. It didn't work for me in terms of the shape. It's very, very open, that cardigan, over the bust, and I have quite a large bust, a much larger bust than I did just a few years ago. When I put weight on, it does tend to go towards my boob area. I mean, lots of areas else as well, kind of, that are south of what you can see from the camera. But I do forget sometimes that when it comes to bust measurements, I'm a lot, shall we say, more endowed than I used to be just a few years ago. And I just didn't feel comfortable with how much chest was kind of exposed. Not that I would just be wearing the cardigan with nothing else. I am really rabbiting on and making no sense, but the way that it sat over my bust line wasn't particularly flattering. Shall we leave it at that? So even though I was incredibly frustrated because that had been almost a monogamous project, I had pretty much just been working on that and putting hours and hours and hours of work in on it, I decided that the best thing to do would be to rip back the yarn, which I adored, which was Wool Kitchen yarn, which I purchased at PomFest, which is why I'd wanted to use the pattern from Pom Pom Quarterly, because it felt like all of those things were coming together quite nicely. But happily, I decided to rip back. Again, a very, very positive experience. I do think that sometimes ripping everything back can be incredibly frustrating. Frogging a project can be quite upsetting and harrowing, but when it comes down to it, you always feel better afterwards. And I know that I did with this project as well. But I knew after a little bit of searching on Ravelry exactly the project that I wanted to use for this yarn. Which is this Gloriousness by the Wool Kitchen. It is Champagne Supernova on their DK BFL, which is the same base that is on the skein that we were giving away in the last episode. And I found this beautiful, beautiful pattern on Ravelry, which is called Channa. I believe that's how you pronounce it, Channa or Channa. It is stunning, and hilariously, I think what drew me to this project was the texture pattern, which runs across the entire front of the sweater, and believe it or not, it's the same as the Kerrytown. It's very different in shape and design to the Kerrytown pullover, but that texture, if you can see here, is the same as the Kerrytown pullover. That beautiful interrupted kind of pearl stitches and knit stitches. And can we just talk about how amazing this yarn looks with this pattern? I knew after knitting the Netherton pullover that this yarn really needed something that was a little bit more simple and something that would really show off the yarn, and I can't tell you how much I love how it looks with this gorgeous pattern. I am knitting this on some of my interchangeable higher sharp needles, which are my favourite needles of all time. I adore them. And I also have one of my little creepy Halloween progress keepers on here, because how could I not? How lovely and adorable is that? This is by Jiggles and Beans, and she makes some of my favourite progress keepers of all time. This has been very much my commuter knitting. It's still relatively small and it's knit in the round, which means that I don't have to worry a huge amount about shoving it in a project bag and popping it in my backpack when I'm going to be on the tube or on the train. So it has been getting a lot of love on my long commute journeys. Look at the back as well. Can you see all of those little pops of colour? And I know that it's going to be something that I will love to wear once it's finished. A lot of people were commenting when I ripped back the Netherton that they were concerned that it was the colourway of this that wasn't appealing to me, which was one of the reasons why I had ripped back the Netherton. But this colour, I disagree. I know it's not something that I usually gravitate towards, but I dress quite differently when I'm being super relaxed at home to when I'm kind of dolling myself up to go out, and this does appeal to the more comfort needing side of me. Plus I think it would look really nice with denim, and I have a couple of denim sewing projects in the pipeline, so yes, I love it so much. And although it's not got a huge amount of work done on it so far, I do hope that it will be finished soon because I want to wear it, but it has taken a little bit of a backseat recently to my next project that I'm going to be sharing with you, which I must admit is probably #1 in my very, very heart of hearts at the moment, and I am so excited to crack on with it. So let me get my last work in progress to share with you. This project is incredibly exciting because it's using one of my birthday gifts from this year. And yes, I know, I promised you guys that I was going to be sharing like a birthday haul of everything that I got for my birthday, and then lots of other things happened and I didn't really upload anything, and it's months now after my birthday and I just think it's probably not going to happen. But it's fine because there will be projects that are coming with some of the yarns and bits and pieces that I got for my birthday, so that is absolutely fine. But this was a gift for my birthday from my incredible parents. We actually went out and purchased it on my birthday and I love it. You can actually see it lurking behind me just here. My amazing parents bought me multiple skeins of Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, and this is in the Trufflehunter colourway, and I love it, although I must admit in my head it always comes out as Truffle Shuffle. For those of you who are Goonies fans, you will get that reference. But this yarn wasn't just for kind of a treat on its own, although it is a treat because it's glorious. It was for a specific project that I've been wanting to cast on for a very long time. In case you haven't noticed, I have been incredibly into sweaters and cardigans and garments recently. It's like that part of my brain has just been turned on and activated, and now that's all I can think of. And I have always wanted to knit a beautiful, heavily cabled garment by one of my favourite designers of all time, and that is the glorious Michele Wang, who is kind of renowned for her tricky cabled garments constructed in pieces that are truly glorious. And whilst she was collaborating with Brooklyn Tweed, she came out with a selection of gorgeous cardigans and sweaters using mostly Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. I think that was usually the yarn that she gravitated towards. So I mean, this is how bad things are, guys, because I'm actually knitting under the camera and I never knit when I podcast because it's a distraction. But this yarn makes me want to knit so badly that every time that I pick up this project, I just think just a couple more rows and it'll be fine. So I am going to stop mid-row, even though that's very naughty, but I need to talk about this. I need to get on. We don't have all day. But the cardigan that I picked to work on is one that's been on my wish list for a while, and it is the Rowe cardigan, which is gorgeous, squishy, oversized cables, big collar amazingness, and I need this cardigan in my life and I need it now. And although I don't usually cast on lots of projects while I have other things on the needles, recently I've just been very much of the train of thought of making my heart happy in everything that I do creatively. So guess what? We're casting on another sweater, even though we still have multiple sweaters on the needles, because that's how I roll right now, you guys. But it is amazing and I love it, but I don't have a huge amount to share. This is how much I have. It's like a very long walrus moustache. You see? And already it's been, number one, lots of fun for reasons that I'll go into in a second. But number two, incredibly challenging. And the reason that it's incredibly challenging is this is my first time ever using a tubular cast on, which is on here, which I love, and I'm very proud of it now that I've done it, because yes, I don't have a huge amount to share, just a little bit of rib, which isn't huge, but I have knit this before, more rib than this in fact, and I ripped it back because that's apparently what I do. That's the person that I am when it comes to my knitting at the moment. But you know what, I'm glad that I did it, because I used the technique for a tubular cast on that was included with the pattern, with Michele's pattern. And although I kind of understand what it was getting at without getting into too many details and giving too much away, because it's obviously a paid for pattern. I didn't really like the result that it gave. It's not the kind of traditional way of doing a tubular cast on, which I have now learnt from my investigation into the process of doing a tubular cast on. And I think if you had more experience with the cast on, it would probably work a lot better, because it was my first ever time using it, it just looked lumpy and there was lots of loose threads, and I just didn't like it. Also, a little insight into my brain, the way that the instructions were written for this tubular cast on were all line by line, written with no kind of visual aids at all. And as a learner, I am very much the type of person who, one, learns from practical, actually doing something. So once I carry out a task physically and practically, I'm usually perfectly good at it after doing that, or having some kind of visual aid when I'm actually learning, so having a picture or an illustration, even if it's just one, that can make the whole difference. If I just see a page of text with a technique that I've never used before, my brain doesn't really compute what it's being asked to do, even though if somebody said those words to me kind of face to face, that would be slightly different. Reading it, I could just never take it in. So I wasn't very happy with how the tubular cast on looked. So I ended up using a different technique, which I found on YouTube, which is when you use a crochet hook to do a provisional cast on. You do about 4 rows of stockinette stitch, and then you unpick your provisional cast on, pick up those stitches, and end up knitting 2 from one needle, purling 2 from another in order to get the total amount of stitches that you need. That will probably make sense if you've done a tubular cast on before, and if you haven't, I'm sorry, it sounds weird, but look into tutorials, I would say, if you're at all confused. But yes, my second attempt of the tubular cast on was incredibly successful, and so much so that I actually finished doing it on the train, which is not somewhere that I would usually recommend for trying out something brand new in the knitting world, but it was a success. It was a success, my goodness, I can't speak, and I'm really happy with how it's looking now. Also, this is the first time that I have ever used Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, and this is why I'm enjoying the project so much, even though it's only a tiny amount that I've done so far. I just love this yarn. I know that Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, for a lot of people, is a bit of a Marmite yarn. Some people love it and some people hate it. I must admit, I love it. It's like nothing that I've ever knit with before, in the texture of it, in the way that it feels. It does feel like knitting with sponge or something like that, like a kind of porous material as opposed to a yarn. But I love it. I think it's beautiful. And I know that some people say that they have a problem with it in terms of it comes apart very easily. I'm not actually an incredibly tight knitter. My tension is relatively chill. It's a bit relaxed, you know, it's not got too much tension in it. So I haven't experienced the problem when you're kind of pulling at the yarn and it comes apart in your hands, which I know that some people have experienced with this. So if you're a very tight knitter, it may not be something that you get on with particularly well. But for me, I just love it. It's so gorgeous and it smells great. Oh, it's so sheepy and amazing, and this colourway makes me so happy as well. This is the colourway which is used in the original pattern, and I don't usually gravitate towards the exact colourway that's with a pattern, but I was a little bit restricted in terms of how much yarn was available at Loop when I went to purchase this all in the same dye lots. But now I'm actually very happy that I did pick this colourway, because I think it's going to be a really lovely neutral garment that will go with everything, because I do tend to have a lot of outfits that cover an entire spectrum of different colours. So it's nice to have something that I think will go with pretty much everything that I own, because having a cohesive wardrobe is very important to me. And I mean, yeah, what more can I say really? It's an amazing project. I know it doesn't look very exciting right now because it's only very small, but I have no doubt that after a couple of weeks it will have grown exponentially, because all I want to do at the moment is knit on this. It's so much fun and I love it, and I'm knitting on it still. You can tell, can't you, that this entire time I've just been knitting on this, and it's distracting. It's distracting, so I'm going to put it away. Oh, beautiful, beautiful yarn, beautiful project. It's going away, I promise. You have my undivided attention once more. So that's everything that's on my needles, and I hope you can kind of tell my relationship with my knitting is so much better than it was even just a week ago. I'm feeling great about it. I'm really, really happy. And the exciting thing is that love and that happiness and that joy is actually also transferring into my sewing projects. I know, you guys, I'm so happy that my sewing is doing things, I'm creating things, I'm making things. It's just, I feel great, and it's, oh, so good. But yes, it's time for Sew What, and I actually have a finished object to share with you this week. Those of you who watch my Instagram stories will have a very good idea as to what this project is, because I did share it last weekend when I was working on it, and it's a bit of a silly project, but it was very therapeutic, it was very good for the soul, and it made me very, very happy to do it. Yay! I made Roly a little doggy coat! Oh my goodness! I love this coat. I love it. I love it. So, Roly obviously is a little pug, and he does wear a coat in the winter when it's wet and it's cold, just to keep him a little bit warmer, because he doesn't really like going outside when it's wet and cold. He's a little bit precious that way. And we did have a shop bought coat for him, a little red tartan one with a furry collar, but the problem is that nowhere makes coats that are the right size for pugs. The way that they're put together, they're very, very odd in their shape. They're very kind of built up in the front and then slightly longer in the back. So there are pugs which are tiny, which will fit into the coats that are kind of for toy dogs. But the problem with Roly is that he is not that small. For a pug, he's actually much bigger than the majority of pugs out there. And so finding a coat that is kind of shop bought that will fit him really well is a real challenge, and so far we've never found one. Even just buying a harness for him is a challenge because of the way that he is put together. So I actually purchased this kit, let me show you the pattern, about 2 years ago from the Knitting and Stitching show in Alexandra Palace. This is a kit by Redhound for dogs, and it's the Sew It Yourself dog coat pattern. And I went for the Terrific Terrier's size, because she does these patterns in a couple of different sizes, but the other sizes that she does is one for kind of whippets and greyhounds, and then one for much larger dogs like Labradors. So in terms of Roly sized, this was the one that we went for, even though obviously he is not terrier sized, which I will go on into in a little bit, just to tell you what I needed to do to the pattern to make it Roly sized. But when I purchased this, it actually was bought with a kit which included absolutely everything that I needed to make this adorable doggy coat for Roly. So if you can see from the outside, it's this really lovely quilted anorak fabric on the outside, but it's also lined with this gorgeous kind of burgundy, pinky red cotton with these little florally I suppose they look a bit like dandelions, don't they, on the inside. I also opted for a bias bound trim. There are a couple of different ways that you can finish your coat in the pattern. One of them is you can just bag out the hem, so you have you sew your coat outer directly to the inner fabric, but I thought that would look a little bit bulky because we are using a fabric that is so thick. So I opted for this lovely bias bound trim, which is in black and white, and it came with this really cute braid with a little D-ring in order to fasten it around his middle when he wears it. And the quality of the kit is incredible. Because I purchased it in person at the Knitting and Stitching show, I literally was able to pick every single colour of every single aspect of this to my own taste. I know that she sells these kits online, and she also does loads of other kits to do with knitting patterns for dogs and all kinds of really lovely things. So you should definitely check out her website if you're interested in doing something similar for one of your furry friends. But I don't know whether or not you can customize them as much as I did in person, because literally I just went, I want that, that, that and that, and she created a kit specifically for me, which was lovely. But the quality is amazing, and I've really enjoyed working with this pattern and the kit. In terms of fitting, I had to do some pretty major adjustments to this pattern in order to get it Roly sized. The pattern that I have, the Terrific Terriers, comes with 3 different sizes: a small, medium and a large terrier. But obviously Roly is not a terrier, so I had to do a bit of a Franken pattern for him because of his strange little body type. The body of this coat is for a small terrier. The chest piece and the neck piece are for a large terrier. So I did have to kind of hack the body piece a little bit in order to incorporate the much larger neck piece of the large terrier. But now that I have the pattern pieces all cut up and altered to fit him perfectly, I can make as many versions of this coat as I want to in kind of different fabrics. I know that on her website she shows some of these little dog coats in wools and even fleece, which I think is adorable. So I can make a whole load of different coats if I want to, and I know that I will have the perfect size for him. But yes, this project was lovely because I finished it in a morning. I did it, I cut it out, I fit it, I sewed it and everything on Saturday morning, and by Saturday afternoon Roly was out on his walk wearing this coat. So in terms of instant gratification, it was the perfect project. And sometimes you just need something kind of little that is done to a really high standard to make you very happy, and that's exactly what this project is. And without being funny, because Roly has been so unwell recently, I felt that giving him this coat and spending time making something specifically for him was a really special moment, and I loved it. I loved the fact that he now wears something that I made for him, because he is my precious little baby boy and he looks adorable in it, so everyone's a winner. I do have one more kind of sewing project to share with you. It is completely finished and I really love it, but I can't share it with you just yet because it's actually something to do with my job. For those of you who don't know, I currently work for Tilly and the Buttons in London, the indie pattern designer company. It's been a lovely experience. I love working there, but recently we teamed up with Spoonflower to do a party dress with their fabric and our patterns that will be on the Tilly and the Buttons blog in December. And although we've already finished the projects and they've all been photographed and they're beautiful and gorgeous, I don't want to share the finished object with you until that post goes live. But I can share with you the fabric that I got from Spoonflower because it's gorgeous and I love it. And I've never actually used Spoonflower before. I know that a lot of people in the States use their services, but recently they've actually opened some offices in Germany, which means it's considerably easier for people in the UK to get hold of their fabric. And the main idea behind Spoonflower, they are not sponsoring me in any way, by the way. I just really want to share this fabric. You pick a pattern from their website and lots of people upload patterns onto the site, so you're supporting lots of independent designers, which is lovely, and you pick the fabric that you want it printed on. They have a huge selection of different kinds of fabrics and then they send it to you. And I picked the crepe fabric, which is a lovely drapey material, very drapey, by the way. So I did actually have to line my dress in order to give it a little bit more weight. But I picked this really cute woodland animal print, and it has little swans and flowers and bunnies and bears and deer. And I love it, and it was so much fun to use, and I'm so happy with my finished outfit. I'm going to definitely wear it to our work Christmas lunch, which will be really fun, but oh, it's lovely. So So yeah, Spoonflower, my experience with them was nothing but positive and wonderful. And obviously, as soon as I can share the dress with you, I will, because it's beautiful and I'm very, very happy with it. I do have some other sewing projects that are kind of in the works at the moment. I also have a large heap of things that need to be either altered or mended, which I am going to be cracking on with over the next couple of weeks. So I may very well share those with you too. But basically, everything in my sewing life feels so much better, pun intended, and I'm just in a really good place. So yay! Before we get on to general waffle, I do have a little bit of stash enhancement to share with you. I am really quite excited about this stash enhancement. I'm not gonna lie, it has brought me so much joy because it's a big box filled with yarn. Said big box is just down by my feet. And although I know I didn't need any more yarn, I really didn't. I never need more yarn. None of us need more yarn, but it's nice to get a little bit more yarn. Let's be honest, it's nice. But I was very much inspired by my friend Amy of Stranded Dye Works, talking about using commercial yarns in projects. I obviously have used a commercial yarn recently, a Knit Picks yarn for my Kerrytown pullover, but I do feel that within the knitting community still there is a little bit of snobbery, I guess, although I think that comes with very negative connotations, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being particular about your yarn, where you buy your yarn. That is absolutely fine. Do what works for you, I think, is the best thing. But some people really do hate using commercial yarns because they just much prefer to use small business yarns and that type of thing. And although I do very much invest a lot of money in indie dyed yarns and smaller companies, sometimes for larger projects it does take a lot of the stress out of a situation if you buy something that's a little bit cheaper. And I have always found that all of the yarns that I've used from commercial yarn suppliers are actually very high quality, and I enjoy using them. So yeah, basically I invested in some commercial yarn from Knit Picks because I'd had such a lovely experience working with the Knit Picks Capra for my Kerrytown pullover that I thought, why not invest in some more? Plus, I think that Amy in the new year is actually going to be doing a kind of commercial yarns knit along, and I'd very much like to get involved in that. But let me show you what I purchased. Oh my goodness, there is so much yarn in this box. So I only purchased 2 colours of yarn, but I got multiple skeins of each because I wanted to purchase sweater quantities of 2 different worsted weight yarns in the Knit Picks sale that happened recently. So the first lot that I purchased was this gorgeous colourway. Oh my goodness, it is glorious. This is Wool of the Andes Tweed, and it's in their Autumn Heather. And like I said, it's a worsted weight, but it has all of these gorgeous kind of tweedy neps in it. It is 80% Peruvian Highland wool and 20% Donegal tweed, which means it has all of the glorious little kind of woodsy neps, and I love it. And I got a lot of it. Yes, look at all that yarn. I wanted to get enough for a nice big cozy sweater or cardigan. And I just love this colour. You know, I will always gravitate towards very autumnal, rich jewel tones, and this just called my name. I'm so happy with how it looks. I think it suits me, and I don't actually have any garments in this colour, so why not knit one? The other... Oh, let me grab this yarn as well. The other yarn that I purchased in the Knit Picks sale, and oh my goodness, I love this so much, was just Wool of the Andes, not Wool of the Andes tweed, and it is in the Shire Heather colourway, which is this glorious kind of forest green, and I love it. Oh my goodness. Again, the same as with the tweed wool, I purchased a whole load of it, and because all of this was in the sale and was very heavily discounted, that's 2 giant sweater quantities plus postage, and I think the total was around about £60, which is probably less than I would spend on a really large knitted garment if I were to purchase it from the shop. So I thought that was a very worthwhile investment, and I'm just really happy to have this yarn. Both these colours make me incredibly happy, and it's just nice to know that I've got 2 giant sweater quantities of yarn without breaking the bank. All right then, guys, that is going to bring us on to my final segment of the podcast, which is, of course, General Waffle. General Waffle. And as promised, I am going to talk a little bit about what has been going on in my life over the past month and where I am at, because I thought it would be beneficial to get you all up to date and have a little chat through all of that. But I think in order to do so, I am going to need some assistance. So bear with me 1 second. Hi. Hi, buddy. Hi. You gonna say hi to everyone? Hi. Guys, in case you haven't met him before, this is Roly, and I've just woken him up, so he's not very happy with me. Say hi. Say hi, bud. Hi. You're a good boy. I brought your blanket up so you'll be nice and comfy. So this little pudding is one of the reasons why the last kind of month or so, let's focus the camera, is one of the reasons why the last month or so has been so complicated. A little bit of backstory. Roly, for those of you who don't know, is our glorious little pug pup. We adore him. He is now 2 years old. Aren't you? He's 2 years old, and he is the utter light of our lives. We adore him, and he's probably spoiled a lot more than he should be, but we really don't care because he is our precious little pup, and he's very special. Roly got sick just over... Okay, bub, I'll put you on my lap. So he's just going to lie down there while we have a little chat. He'll pop back up later. For about 2 months, Roly has been quite unwell. For most of that time, it was digestive issues. He was being sick. He was having stuff come out of the other end as well. And in particular, it would affect him in the very early hours of the morning. He would become very distressed. He wouldn't be able to sleep. He would cry. He would be being sick. And it was really difficult to try and work out exactly what was going on with him. But we finally put him on some medication that seemed to be working in terms of the gastroenteritis that he was suffering with. However, I soon noticed pretty much the day after he started taking this medicine that he was starting to scratch behind his neck area. And Roly, like most dogs, does have a little bit of a scratch every now and again, but he was really irritated and he wouldn't leave this area alone. That night, I noticed that he just wouldn't rest at all and was constantly scratching. And that morning, when we looked at the back of his neck, he'd scratched himself red raw in a couple of areas. It was very concerning. We sent a picture to our vet who came over that day. And when I got back from work, because luckily Emrys was able to stay with Roly, the entire back of his head and his neck had been shaved by the vet, which revealed just how extensive this problem with his skin was. It was basically covering the entirety of the back of his head and his neck. Many parts of it were very open and raw and bleeding, and when we looked at other areas of his skin, he almost had hives down the entire of his back. And in his ears were like scarlet and very inflamed, and he was so uncomfortable. And of all of the problems that he'd had and all of the sleep that we'd obviously lost from looking after him with his initial problems, I think that this was like the worst thing, because he was obviously in so much pain and all he wanted to do was scratch to alleviate the irritation that he was feeling in that skin. But obviously every time he did scratch, he would just open up all of these wounds on the back of his head. It was this vicious cycle. And that was right at the moment when I was supposed to be kind of uploading podcasts and sharing everything with you. So at that point, I've also been dealing with changes at work. I have been promoted, and we were in between assistants because I moved from the assistant job to the manager job. So there are additional stresses in my role because of that. We were also doing a lot of preparation for sales and Black Friday. On top of that, my commute ended up being an absolute nightmare because on many days it was taking around about 3 hours round trip every day for me to get in and out of work. That combined with the fact that Roly had been so unwell that we weren't sleeping at all. I mean, Emrys and I would take it in turns, one of us to be with Roly and one of us to sleep in a separate room, just so that one of us would be able to get some shut-eye, because Roly would not be able to sleep without one of us. He would cry and be very, very, very upset. It was like having a newborn child, basically. So all of these things combined basically meant that I didn't feel like I wanted to share where I was at that point with you guys, because I was at a very, very, very dark, bleak point. Because without being funny and being one of those crazy dog people, when everything starts going wrong in my life and I'm stressed and I'm upset, my dog is one of the things that makes my life better. Coming home to Roly and having him be such a source of love and companionship would change my day from being a terrible day to being the best day, just having him with me. So having him have such problems that were affecting him so deeply just broke me a little bit, which meant that I wasn't being creative, which meant I was feeling incredibly depressed. I was finding it just the biggest effort to get out of bed in the morning and go to work and do my job, let alone anything else. And that was kind of where I was. And thankfully, you guys have been so supportive in just allowing me to take the time to find my own sense of normality and balance again. And we did think at that point that Roly was suffering from an allergic reaction of some kind, but our vet assured us that the medicine that Roly was on, he had never seen a dog have an allergic reaction to it, and he thought it was literally just that Roly was incredibly run down because he'd been so unwell that was kind of causing him to have these other problems. Cut to about a week later, when Roly isn't getting any better, he has to be with someone 24/7 because otherwise he'll scratch himself red raw. He also has to wear a comical pair of socks on his back legs to stop him from scratching, and he was just not himself. He had no energy, he was very lackluster, he was just very upset the whole time. We spoke to our vet and he said it looks very much like an allergy to the medicine that he's on, which is what we thought in the first place. And I do not blame him at all, because Roly is a bit of an enigma apparently when it comes to medicine. But we switched his medication. We got some topical cream for the area that was very, very inflamed. We also put him on a specific antibiotic that deals with skin conditions, and a specific medicine that prevents irritation in the skin to stop him scratching. And it genuinely was like a miracle cure, kind of overnight, being off the medicine that he was obviously allergic to and being put on this medicine which really, really affected the area that was having the biggest problem, meant that for the first time in 2 months, all three of us managed to get a full night's sleep. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate sleep now after this whole experience, and also how much respect I have for all of you guys with young kids, because just having about a month without sleep or grabbing 2 hours here or 2 hours there, I do not know how you function as human beings, and you have my utter respect. Anyone with newborns that keep them up all night, it just blew my mind. I never realised how fundamental sleeping is, and that I can pretty much cope with anything, but when it comes to lack of sleep, I fall apart as a human being, and it was very, very difficult. Oh, also on top of all of this, we also had house guests staying with us for a week, on top of all of this, with all of this going on. So that's basically what has been keeping me away from YouTube, what's been keeping me away from Instagram, and I didn't feel strong enough to be able to share all of those things with you when I was at my darkest, because I am very, very open about mental illness and about my own issues that I go through, and the problems that I face within my own mind and my own brain. But when I'm actively dealing with them in the here and now, and I'm in a very, very dark place, it is exhausting trying to explain those things to other people when you're having difficulty kind of explaining them to yourself and understanding exactly what is triggering you and what is causing you to have these emotions. It's only now that we're on the other side and we are sleeping, and Roly, although he is still partly shaved, he is so much better than he was before, that I can vocalize all of these things and share them with you. So that is a lot of what has been going on. But now I genuinely feel stronger for having gone through it. I feel so much love for this little dog. I mean, my goodness. He put us through hell. You put us through hell, Bubba. But I love him, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Funniest thing that happened, I think, in the entire time that I was kind of MIA from you guys, is that I did get my new tattoo, which is on my arm. It's still kind of healing. It's a little bit rough and ready still, but I will insert a picture so that you can see it close up. It is an Addams Family inspired piece. It says Cara Mia, which, if you'll know, is the name that Gomez calls Morticia in the Addams Family. It was by an incredible artist who I will definitely be going back to for more work in the future. But it is, as it's Addams Family themed, a little coffin. I shared a picture of this tattoo next to Roly on Instagram, and I think I gave about 60% of you a heart attack because he thought something awful had happened to Roly, and this was like maybe in memorandum style tattoo, which it is not. But I'm sorry for giving you all a fright, but getting the tattoo and having the opportunity to get out of the house and do something that I had booked in a long time in advance and not feel that I had to be at home looking after Roly really was a turning point for us in this whole experience. So even though I love it for what it is, Emrys also included the words Karamia in his wedding vows, so for that reason it's very special to me. But it will also remind me that it was at this turning point with him getting better, which is incredibly special as well. So yeah, that is what has been going on inside number 23 recently. Happily, we are well and truly out of the woods. This little guy is so much happier than he was just a few weeks ago, and I just feel so happy and so positive about the future. I really, really do think that good things are just around the corner. And a lot of that is thanks to you guys. I'm going to close up by saying thank you so much for waiting for me, for understanding about my situation with Roly, for your unswerving support in everything that I do, and not making me feel guilty for taking this time away from you, even though I know that a lot of you have expressed that you miss me and that you're looking forward to when I come back. I never felt pressure from any of you to upload like right here, right now, and I cannot tell you how amazing that is, and the amount of pressure that I sometimes put on myself on a day-to-day basis. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to know that the people that I do this for have my back, and you guys are just awesome. We love you. Don't we, Roly? Say, I love you. Oh no, I love you. I love you all. Oh my goodness, look at how miserable he looks. You can sit back down, Bubba. That's okay. Thank you all so much for watching again this week, you guys. It has been amazing catching up with you. Fingers crossed, if all things go as planned, I will be with you again next week. For now, I'm sending you all so much love. I hope you all have an incredible week filled with knitting and sewing and all of the good stuff. It is the first week of December. Let's get in the Christmassy frame of mind. Woohoo! If you celebrate Christmas, if not, just festive and full of seasonal fun. I will see you next week. I love you all so much. Roly loves you so much. Let's see if he'll say goodbye. We love you guys. Bye. Hey, pups.